So, welcome Fernanda and welcome everyone. So, shall we start, Fernanda?
Yes, let's get started, Shireen. Turn my
Okay.
camera on. Let me know if you all can see me, can hear me.
Yes, we can see
Yes,
you.
perfect.
Pretty as
So
usual. It's great to see your face again. It has been some
good to
time.
see you. Yes, it's been a while. Let me go ahead and share my screen. This will be 1 second and we'll get started.
So, before we start, we would like to welcome everyone and welcome Fernanda as one of our main speakers. She's joining us from Brazil. So, what is the time at your place now?
It's 11 a.m. It's not bad.
Okay. Oh, it's
Hmm.
your Saturday. So thank you for being committed to us, helping us. It's maybe fourth time for you to share with us in our series of webinars, and we always learn from you. So thank you, and thanks to everyone who's joining us today. And we have as well Grand Fernanda's twin, Grand Swanable as well. He's here. They are the two experts about sustainability, how to set the right standards, how to help supply chains to improve and excel all over the world. So, Fernanda, floor is yours.
Thank you, Shireen, and thanks for the invitation. It's always a pleasure to be here and to speak to the supply chain community in the Middle East. This is one of my passionate topics, supply chain and sustainability. And today I wanted to bring a different flavor for us to touch base on the sustainable development goals. Sometimes it's overseen, so I think it's time for us to revamp a little bit on the SDGs and how these are connected to supply chains. So this is the agenda, what I prepared for today. I'll do a quick introduction to ASCM. Then I'm going to go over, give a brief overview on what are the SDGs, the Sustainable Development Goals, how these are connected to them, how supply chains are connected to them. And then at the end, we'll have a call to action. I wanted to share some tools and frameworks to help supply chain professionals here in the meeting to know how to support operationalizing sustainability on their supply chains, on their practices. I'll take questions at the end because of the flow. I don't think I can see your hands raised for now. So I'll leave some time for the questions at the end of the presentation. Just a quick introduction to ASCM. So we are the largest nonprofit supply chain association. So we are over 50,000 professional members worldwide, um, operating more than 100 countries. Egypt is one of the countries we operate. One of the countries we have partnership with Symbios for a long time now. We have over 170,000 professional members certified globally with CPIM, CSCP. You probably have heard of these certifications. We are headquartered in Chicago, although we have an international presence. So I'm based in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil. I oversee Latin America, sustainability, and the Global Health Initiative. I have a colleague who's in the meeting room as well, over Grant Swanopo. Probably you've seen him, know him from other webinars, and his great presence in the region. He oversees Africa, Middle East, and out Europe as well. And we have another client based out of Singapore. So we are truly international organization, international nonprofit association, and we have in a great place where we can leverage our membership community to pass along those concepts. One of them being sustainability. So a better world through supply chain is our vision. This is what we believe, and this is what us as supply chain professionals should also believe, because we may not know, but we do have the power for doing good through supply chains. Quickly, just on our four strategic pillars, just for us to situate where we are here and where ASM operates. So we are on the talent development, individual talents through our certifications. You've probably have heard of them, CPIM, CSCP. These are offered in your countries as well. We also work with corporations on transformation programs, leveraging the SCORE model. You probably have heard of this as well, of seen it. So it is a great tool for transformation in the supply chains of our companies. We also have a foundation where our Global Health Initiative sits, and we have a sustainability pillar, which is all of related to sustainability education, standards, and assessments that we want to bring to the supply chain community. So these are our 4 pillars, just a snapshot on the companies that we work with as corporate members and are as clients, recipients of our training worldwide. And these are, you can see we have different industry sectors where we operate. So our standards and our trainings, they are horizontal to supply chain. Doesn't matter which vertical you are, our trainings and our certifications and our standards, they cut across all of these industries. So let's talk a little bit about the Sustainable Development Goals, the SDGs, and what they are. So you may think, some of you may think, oh, these are just for charity. You think about it's just poverty. And I wanted to clarify what these are and how these are related to supply chains in the following slides. And my apologies, I don't know why the slides keep changing. It's not me changing the slides, but I know it can get dizzy, so apologies ahead of time. So the Sustainable Development Goals, they're actually 10 years old right now. They were signed by all 193 countries back in 2015. And it's like, I like to call it in a simple way, it's the world's to-do list. It's what we need to do to the world to make sure we'll thrive beyond 2030, beyond 2050 now, because 2030 is around the corner. If you think about ourselves, if you were to make an analogy, if you want to live 100 years, or if you want to reach the 90 years in good health, we probably have a list that, we need to have. We need to exercise, we need to have work-life balance, we need to have good mental health, we need to have low cholesterol, and so forth. So the Sustainable Development Goals is the same list. It's a to-do list if you want to thrive beyond 2030, 2050 as a planet. So there's a big commitment from governments. It began with the governments, nations signing the development goals back in 2015. But as it developed, the private sector and the companies as well embraced it, seeing the value of such a framework and seeing the relationship between the framework and their own activities. So then the SDG became open, widely reported mechanisms where companies that are signatories, especially signatories of the United Nations Global Compact, they align their activities and their initiatives and all the improvements to the goals. And I'll show this a little bit in details. So when we see it, it's like really, when you see it, it's simple, but the complex things comes from the simple. So we're talking about the basics here. And I'll read quickly about all the 17 goals. No poverty, goal number 1. No hunger, meaning everyone has access to food. Goal number 3, good health and well-being, meaning people have access to medicines, to doctors. Goal 4, we all have access to quality education. Goal 5, gender equality, meaning men and women have equal rights. Goal 6, clean water and sanitation. Everyone has a right to have access to clean water. Goal number 7, affordable and clean energy, meaning that some parts of the world, unfortunately, still don't have access to energy, but Goal 7 says everyone has a right to have clean and have access to energy. Goal 8 about work, decent work and economic growth, touching a lot about minimum wage and how we treat our employees. Goal 9 about industry, innovation, and infrastructure. Goal 10, reducing inequalities, also meaning the reduction of the richest and the poorest. So we're having a more equal society. Sustainable cities and communities, making sure that our cities, they will thrive and they are also sustainable. Goal 12 about responsible consumption and production, the way we consume and we produce our products and goods globally. Goal 13 about climate action, about emissions, about how are we aware of climate change and how we tackle climate change. Goal 14 about the water, how we protect our oceans. 15, how we protect our life on land. Goal 16 about peace and justice. This has a lot to do with ethics and anti-corruption movements, compliance, and all these things related to ethics and society. And goal 17 is about how do we collaborate as governments, as companies, for to partner up. So this is the partnership for the goals. How do we collaborate to achieve all these goals? So typically in our classroom, in our class, we ask and we start a discussion about which of these 17 goals are more related to sustainability, to supply chains, and we get a rich conversations because indirectly, all of the goals, supply chain will touch all of those goals. So we, through supply chains, are able to somehow impact all the 17 goals. But we are not in a classroom and we'll not have time for discussion. So I'll go ahead and say that the ones that we will have as supply chain professionals, the most impact will be goal 12, responsible consumption and production, and goal 13, climate action. So these two, when we see into all of the things that we can do as professionals, things that are on our hands that we can decide upon, 12 and 13 are the most frequent ones. And of course, in your companies, especially if you do sustainability reporting, the companies that you work for do reporting, that will be a mix of reporting of those 17 goals. By the way, today I have a goals 16 shirt. So it's the ethics, anti-corruption. I have a couple of those shirts. Yeah, so this is my way of doing some advocacy. So this is goal 16. ASM as a signatory, we don't do reporting because we are a nonprofit, but we do some sets of products and our standards. They're all aligned to some of the goals. So we do have a sustainability standards that you'll talk about in the subsequent slides. We have a sustainability assessment for supply chain specifically, also aligned to goals 12, 13, and 16. We have an annual report on diversity and inclusion to the supply chain. We do this with Gartner, supporting goals 5 and 10. We also have a sustainability educational module that I'll talk a little bit about in the end. It's called Building a Sustainable Supply Chain. And this is where we learn about this and much more. But this is all aligned to goal 12, 13, and 16 in our public health initiative, where we have a supply chain assessment specifically for global health to help countries better operate their supply chains, meaning that they will help goal 3 so that they will be helping people get access to medication. So this is the intent. And this is also under the foundation. So let's talk a little bit about more those goals, goal 13 and goal 12 specifically. So those are the most related to supply chain. So goal 13 is climate action. So everything related to emissions, to climate change, has to do with education for climate change, has to do with reducing the global temperature and climate justice as well. So how does that translate to supply chain? So if you think about emissions, this is something that we all deal with. The way we strategize our supply chain, the way we design things, all of them will have impact on emissions. And just as a recap, for those of you not too familiar with emissions, so emissions are divided into 3. You probably hear more about scope 3, which is really the supply chain emissions. But there's scope 1, which is the company's own emissions. Scope 2, which is the indirect emissions coming from your energy bill, from energy that you purchase. And then there's scope 3, which is, I don't want to call it the villain, but it's the hardest one. And this is the one that everyone is far from seeing, that has no visibility because it sits on everyone else's. So everyone else's, but your company is a scope 3 emission. But if you're doing business, if you have a business relationship of flows of goods, a flow of materials, then those emissions are probably part of your emissions inventory as well. So scope 3 emissions are mostly supply chain emissions, and they account from 70 to 90% of a company emission. So if we want to tackle climate change, if we want to reduce a company's own emissions overall, including 1, 2, and 3, we need to look for scope 3 emissions, understand where emissions are coming from, make sure that you're using resources that will not increase the emissions. So this is all about SDG 13. So our sourcing activities, where we are sourcing from. If we're sourcing too much from China and bringing everything through an airplane, there is an impact. Or maybe you can choose to source something locally, traveling in a shorter distance by truck or by an electric vehicle, or by train. So, I mean, this is a supply chain professional choice, having the trade-off of this. The way you design your supply chain network. Do I have a global network with footprint in every continent with products flying across the globe by air, or do I have maybe manufacturing closer to suppliers, closer to my distribution points? How do I rethink my network for it to be more sustainable, to have less emissions? So this is also a supply chain decision that is in our hands. Modal choice and optimization. How many times some companies just prefer to fly over, just having a longer lead time, doing by train, for example. So this is a trade-off for us to think about. Is this something that my business would accommodate? What if I increase my lead time as a trade-off for having a longer lead time, but with a lower emission? So this comes in the hand of a supply chain professional as well. And of course, manufacturing strategy. Am I making, am I buying? What will be the least emissions for my supply chain strategy? Do I have manufacturing plants around the world? So all these things related to network, to transportation, to where I'm sourcing from. So these are things that directly impact Scope 3 emissions. And this is a decision in the hand of a supply chain professional. This is why there's this close relationship. And because it's supply chain and supply chains are complex, they're a network, they're not chains anymore, right? They're networks. And this is why it's so hard, because you don't have visibility over them. Sometimes you don't even have visibility over your tier 2 suppliers, let alone your tier 3 suppliers. So this is why it becomes so hard, because you need to first map where these emissions are coming from, and second, know how much is emitting. And chances are your supplier will not know their emissions, because they don't know what their emissions. Then you start trying to guesstimate, and then you don't really have the correct numbers. This is one of the pushbacks on Scope 3, because it's hard to get good data, but it has to start somewhere. This is why, digitization will help with visibility of the supply chain and visibility of emissions. Knowing about supply chain mapping it's a super tool. Score model is a tool to help map supply chains as well. Using the model will give you visibility of where your emissions are. But this problem sits in the lap of a supply chain professional. A sustainability professional will not have the visibility of the full supply chain to be able to assert what are scope emissions, how can we reduce them? So this is why Goal 13 is so critical and so important for supply chain professionals as well. I wanted to show this slide, and some of you may be familiar. This is a slide from the CSCP materials, just to illustrate where Scope 3 emissions are and why is it complex and hard to find them. So, and also a reminder, so if you see here, if you're a manufacturing company, you're responsible for your own Scope 1 emission, and then you're responsible for a Scope 2 emission, where you're getting your energy from, where you're buying electricity from, where you're buying your steam or your cooling from. So this is Scopes 1 and 2. But all the rest, it is a Scope 3 emission. So tier 2 material supplier, it is Scope 3. Your tier 1, the distributor, the transportation to your distributor is a Scope 3. What the transportation to your customer is a Scope 3 emission. What your customer do with the product life cycle, it is a Scope 3 emission. So it covers everything. It's super rare, and I'll share some examples on sustainability reporting on the couple of slides. It's hard. It's not an easy equation. We don't have visibility on all of it, especially consumer goods products. So it is something that we need to educate ourselves and think more and more. How do we get visibility? How do we account for this? How do we reduce for it? Because this is the end of the day. It doesn't matter if you know where emissions are, if you can't reduce them. We need to reduce those emissions. And it just give us the heads up that this is a new flow that us as supply chain professionals will need to master at some point in time, and we don't do it now. So now we're super good. We know about flows of materials and services, flow downstream to the consumer. We know about cash flow coming from the consumer upstream, information flow that goes both ways. And now we'll have a fourth flow, which is the emissions flow, which is a scope 3 flow. So this is for the future. I don't see this practice being as embedded in supply chain professional. Yes, there is a trend, specifically in Europe, but as supply chain professionals, this is something that will eventually fall back in our laps. How to have visibility, how do we tackle, how do we reduce scope 3 emissions? Let's move forward to SDG 12, which is the other big one for us, responsible consumption and production. And this one relates to waste, to materials. So the amount of materials we are consuming, how we are producing things. So the way we design our products, how we select our packaging, how we select our raw materials and components, all of these impact responsible consumption and production. This SDG talks about circular supply chain, talks about using natural resources from the planet, talks about how do we recycle and reuse and repurpose things, how do we report on sustainability standards, how do we reduce food and waste, how do we manage waste. So this is all more materials related. And us as supply chain professionals, this is something that also will fall back in our plate, because the way we design packaging, where we are buying from, are we buying virgin materials, meaning brand new materials, or do we buy recycled materials? When we design things, do we design products that can be recycled? Can we guarantee that our waste is not going to landfill, which is one of the things from the circular economy? We don't want to generate waste that goes to the landfill. How do we think about sourcing from sustainable sources? How do we source from places closer to you so that we don't have the emissions? How do you source things that have been used before? So all of these things are in the hands of a supply chain professional. The materials you select, how you measure waste in your operations, both in the warehouse as well, not only manufacturing, but we have shrink wrap in warehouses. Most of warehousing, it's a ton of plastic. We have packages, we have pallets. So all of these things, how do we generate, how do we manage, how do we account for? We know our waste composition, what it is. How do we make sure we don't divert them to landfill? What do I do with my waste? How do I reuse this waste if I repurpose my waste into a different supply chains? Am I able to reuse what I have as waste within my own supply chain? Am I able to take back products and reinsert on my supply chain? So all of these things related to using less. How do I use less? How do I use what already exists? How do I not buy virgin materials for any new products that I'll launch? So all of these things, all this type of thinking, this is related to SDG 12. And there's a hand of a supply chain professional in sourcing or procurement that can look for alternative sources of materials. Someone from product development that can design products thinking about its circularity, how it integrates back into the supply chain, thinking about the bill of materials, which of those materials really need to be brand new materials, virgin materials, like we call them. Are these products able to be remanufactured and reinserted into the supply chain? So these are things, all of these things related to waste management, materials consumption, and circularity. These are all critical things of SDG 12. And this is why it's super important that us as supply chain professionals, especially into procurement, when we talk about product design, when we talk about circularity, waste management, that we know about this, that the things that we decide upon will have an impact on SDG 12. I wanted to show on the following slides how companies are leveraging the SDGs into their sustainability reporting, because at the end of the day, this is something that can be a great tool for you to bring forward to your companies, whether or not you already do a sustainability report. So I'll share a couple of these, and you have the slides afterwards with the link. So this is from one of our corporate member, Abbott, the pharmaceutical company. I'm not sure if you can read it, but they highlight specifically on climate action, how they are using to trying to reduce their own scope 1, scope 2 emissions, and also holding accountable their suppliers for scope 3 emissions. So this is something that they have into their report, and then they track the reduction within their supplier base. So this is one example. Still with the app in the Abbott sustainability reports, how are they on SDG 12? How are they engaging with suppliers to make sure that they are reducing their footprint as well, the environmental impact? So they're working with their suppliers to make sure they are reducing their waste generation. They describe here, it's maybe it's too small to read, but how they have changed the packaging of some of their materials. They are changing some of their manufacturing sites, reducing operational waste, reducing packaging impact. So all of these are related to goal 12 and to supply chains as well, not only inside the company but also with suppliers, which is key. It doesn't matter if we do it alone, if we don't involve the full supply chain, including suppliers and customers. This is another view. I find it interesting. It's not one of our corporate members, but it's also a way of showing all of the SDGs and whether or not they are contributing, they are reporting on them. This is from the chocolate. This is Lindt, the chocolate manufacturer. The chocolate supply chain is one of the most studied supply chains for both sustainability and social aspects, because where cocoa comes from and the biodiversity impact that it has and how it goes around the world to be shipped. So it is one of the cases for sustainability. So I find it interesting that they put all of the SDGs there, and then they just check the ones that they are reporting on. We can see here a lot of things related to 12 initiatives related to 12, a lot of climate change as well. Of course, they have the others because they have these complex supply chain that involves people and biodiversity because of the cocoa supply chain. One of the things that also raised that we always think, and we also talk about this in class, it's called SDG washing, right? This is nice to see, have all the colors, all the SDGs. This is something we need to be careful. It is impossible to tackle all the 17, right? Let's focus on the ones that we have the most impact. So this is something to be cautious about, because there is this expression like greenwashing. There is also the SDG washing. You want to say do everything, and you're never going to do well everything. So it's better to focus on key SDGs that you're able really to tackle and work on. And I think this is the last one I have for you. So from a corporate member as well, BASF chemical company, it shows, I think it's interesting how they show progression to the SDGs. So here they are, their reduction for this year for impacts of emission scope 3 and scope 1 for them. Covers sustainability evaluations on their suppliers, on responsible procurement, with their reduction on scope 1 and 2. I found this one interesting as well, the way they're accountable for water, reducing usage of water and sustainable usage of water, also related to both SDG 12 and 14 for the water. So these are just different ways to illustrate how companies leverage, how they report, how they tackle, and how you can help, right? Because these are all things that you could be supporting on within your organization. So I wanted to share now some of the tools to help you. How do you help organization? How do I get started on this sustainability journey? So the first one I wanted to share is our sustainability standards from ASCM. It is a super tool. Every time we talk about sustainability, we talk about the standards because it is a robust framework, similar to SCORE for supply chains. This one has a little bit of SCORE plus sustainability. So the way it was designed and the reason why it's unique, because it derives from the known frameworks. We're not trying to reinvent the wheel here. There are frameworks that have been long before us, and they're established ones. So it has some of that, but our uniqueness comes from the supply chain part of it that leverages our body of knowledge, CPIM, CSCP, CLTD, and SCORE. So it is really a sustainability standards for supply chains, different than the other one. It is a super tool to help you operationalize sustainability in the supply chain, because you see the processes and how the processes should be done if you are to respect both the environment and the society and being efficient as well. If you want to download the standards, this QR code puts you in the page. But I wanted to go over the 9 themes quickly for you to know what it is. So the way we read this, and we call this the egg timer prep, because it goes like this. So for you to attain sustainable supply chains, you need to plan, to source, right? All things supply chain, here are your processes: to plan, to source, make, deliver, and return. Do this efficiency, generating economic value, respecting the planet and the societies and community that we operate. So in other words, this is also the triple bottom line when we talk about how to get that balance of generating value, generating profit, generating revenue, but respecting the planet and the people that we operate with. So this is the concept of the triple bottom line. So the standard itself, it will have how you do all of these, respecting the triple bottom line, deriving value, ethic, respecting people and society and the planet, but also how do we do this? So we need some enablers. So we have the strategy behind, you need governance, you need workforce, people to be ready to do it, and the technology as an enabler to do all of these. And of course, you need to bring along your key stakeholders, which is community, customer, government, and suppliers. So the standard, the 9 themes, it encompasses 189 standards, and it covers all of these aspects of how you generate value, how you do all of these: planning, source, make, deliver, return, generating value, and being respectful for people and planet, leveraging stakeholders and enablers. So it is a super tool. It is a couple of pages. Feel free to download it. It's been used. It's been almost 4,000 downloads over the years. This is a slide I like to share because people get curious without seeing the standard. So this is the process excellence. This is the value add. This is the supply chain part of the standard. So they're all supply chain processes in there. How do you do these? What should be doing this in light of the triple bottom line? How do you do mode optimization in a sustainable way? How do you do supplier research in a sustainable way? And just one caveat, when I say sustainable, I'm not referring to green or to just the planet or the environment. Sustainable means generating value, respecting people and planet. So everything when we say, oh, this is sustainable, yes, I'm generating profit, I'm generating value, but I'm not harming the planet and the people. So this is the concept of sustainability. So how do we do all of these in a sustainable way, right? How do I do a pick, put away perfectly, respecting all these variables? So this always in the supply chain sustainability standards for you to download. And they are also mapped to the SDGs, which is an add-on to it. So we are not competing with the SDGs. We mapped the standards to the SDGs for being a tool to be useful and to be easy for those that are in supply chain and doing sustainability reporting. And this mapping can be used in 2 ways. You can either do it backwards, so you can look into your sustainability report, see if your company is reporting on any of the SDGs, and see how you can be collaborating to the SDGs that your company is already reporting on. And you can see here, oh, my company is working, SDG 3 is a huge thing for my company. How can I help them? So you have here under the workforce enablers theme within the standards, what are the activities that will relate that you can help support your company on SDG 3? So this is one way. The other way around, which we're seeing, is really seeing supply chain professionals taking the leadership and doing projects and going back to the company and say, I'm doing these things, which is helping in these SDGs. This is something maybe it's meaningful, putting back in our sustainability report. And we've seen a couple of initiatives. We had, like as an example, from Petrobras that did a couple of projects and were able to showcase their sustainability projects within the supply chain in their company's annual sustainability report. So it's just a guide to help those professionals that are advocates, that are really with the mindset to see how can I help my company stay on track for their strategy using the SDGs, and the other way around as well. It's also mapped to GRI reporting, can be used the same way. So companies using the GRI to report can have some ideas of what the things they're doing in supply chain and how they contribute to the GRI that the company support to. GRI is the Global Report Initiative. It's also one of the widest reporting frameworks as well. This is something we discussed in the sustainability class. Then we have a sustainability assessment, which is something new. We launched it back in conference in September. We have a couple of companies taking it. It's also free. But I want to give you an idea of all of the diagnostics, because diagnostics is becoming a trend, specifically within ASEM. We've seen more and more the value of diagnosing and taking a picture of an as-is state of your supply chain. And that we use the human body analogy again. It's the same when you go to the doctor and you get your blood check, your blood checks, you know, your cholesterol levels, glucose, everything, right? So it gives you a picture of your as-is state. And if you have one of those, indexes high, so for instance, if you have your cholesterol too high, everything is well, you need to focus on bringing that down. And then in 6 months, 1 year afterwards, you would do another blood check to see if that came down. So same thing with our supply chains. More and more, we are seeing the value of having a picture of an as-is state to help you guide your efforts. Supply chains are huge. Where should I start from? So those diagnostics, they will help you finding a starting point. How do I kick off an improvement roadmap? And then you're also, through the assessment, be able to reassess to see if after you did any implementation, any initiatives for improvement, if that really moved the needle, if that improved maturity. So I'm thinking about diagnostics in general, and we have plenty of them. Symbios is capable, is one of the agents that are able to deliver those assessments. So we have a qualitative score assessment that will talk about maturity overall in the supply chain. We have a talent analysis talking more about the people aspect within the supply chain. The global health maturity model, our SDG3 tool, which is also for global health supply chain, specifically for access to medicines, and the sustainability maturity assessment that will talk about the triple bottom line and the sustainability. I'm not going to go over this too much to leave us time to questions, but all of these assessments, they come from a rating from 1 to 5, 1 being the least mature, being like a reactive supply chain, pretty much firefighting, trying to survive. A level 2, reactive efficient, you survive. Things get done, but at a cost. Level 3, it's an integrated internally supply chain. A level 4, extended supply chain, integrated externally. In the level 5, we are talking more about ecosystems and orchestrated supply chains. Here in green, you see for sustainability what that means. So it comes from very low maturity, from just being aware that maybe that exists, maybe yes, maybe start to think about how we do our supply chains, goes up to a level where we have thought leadership and seeing supply chains taking the leadership in sustainability, companies moving the needle. So you have that slide, you'll be able to read all of these afterwards. But I wanted to show you what are the focus areas of the sustainability assessment. So it will cover the triple bottom line, the sustainability spectrum, right? How to do things well in your supply chain in light of respecting the people environment. So here we talk the things that I showed on the other slide, things related to supply chain, pure supply chain, plan, source, make, deliver, and return. Here we talk about, when we talk about respecting the people and ethics. It's more about human rights and labor practices, for anti-corruption, minimum wage, training, child labor, all these aspects related to the social side of the supply chain. Then when environment, will assess everything related to energy consumption, water consumption, that goes hand in hand, SDG 12 and 13, waste management, material usage, SDG 12, greenhouse gas emission scopes 1, 2, and 3, SDG 13, product life cycle stewardship, how to take care of our products from cradle to grave. This is SDG 12 as well. And circular supply chain management, another one for SDG 12. So we cover the whole spectrum of the supply chain in terms of maturity. It's also a 1 to 5. You get this in a dashboard mode, so you have a score for each of those aspects. So we can see that this fictitious supply chain got a lowest grade into environmental, but got the highest grade in planning. So they plan well. While they plan well, they are not doing so well for the planet. Then we are able also to drill down, just to give you an idea, when we do those assessments, you really have a diagnostic, just like a blood works, you get a good diagnostics, where you have a grade for every one of those aspects that I showed on the previous slide. And then from there, we are able to drive projects, suggest initiatives that are able to improve your scores on those assessments. Yeah, so this is free. This is a QR code if you're interested in this. You can sign up for this, and we'll be getting in touch to schedule a maturity assessment for your company as well. You have this as well. I'm going to move to take questions. I couldn't not mention our educational module. So all of these and much more is available on Building a Sustainable Supply Chain workshop. It is our educational module to educate supply chain professionals on how to operationalize sustainability in the supply chain. It's only available through partners. You cannot find it on the website. It is a 15-hour class. You get 15 points toward maintenance. So for those of you that are already certified, it will give you maintenance points, a statement of completion. It can be done either face-to-face or online. So far, all of the classes we've seen, they've been online, and this has been worked well. And the key objectives here is really to understand, to educate supply chain professionals on the sustainability concepts and how they relate to supply chains, not just sustainability as a standalone, but as a sustainability as an enabler for better supply chain operations, because sustainability is also cost reduction, not just investment and not just extra costs or extra work like some people think. How do you interpret the standards? How do you use the standards? I mentioned there are 189 standards, the 9 themes. So how do you use them? So this is something we discuss a lot in class. And then how to apply those, right? Because we don't want to just know about the concept and have the tools. And then we'll learn how to apply those in the supply chain with case studies and with assessments exercise. So this is a class for supply chain professionals that want to know more about sustainability, or sustainability professionals that want to know more about supply chain as well, because it is heavily supply chain based. And just in a positive note, before I think this is my last slide, I know some people may feel that sustainability is going away. We've seen some countries moving away from global commitments like the Paris Agreement, and going back to plastic or fossil fuel. And we know this may get a note that, oh no, things are derailing, we're not going to go anywhere. But this is not the case. I mean, we've seen a lot of authors and a lot of studies and articles that no, sustainability is staying. It won't change. More and more, as not only as professionals or as company managers, but as individuals, will feel the need that this is something that will not go away. What they feel is that will be less show off, less greenwashing, or less, oh, I'm doing this and I'm reducing that, for action. So companies will be maybe quieter on showcasing the things they're doing, but they will be doing initiatives focused on results, focused really on reducing materials, on reducing emissions, on rethinking their supply chain so that they can generate focus. Also, we are seeing an integration of sustainability into core functions. So it will be part of every day. So it will not just be the compliance or the sustainability. More and more, we'll be talking about sustainability within the other departments. We see this as a trend because it's this part of the world we're living in, right? And again, just remembering that when I talk sustainability, it's not just about, oh, how do we get greener? It's how do we operate in a society with better gender equality, with human rights, with better labor practices. So all of these will be embedded in the company. Also, a stronger focus on sustainability as a driver for economic opportunity and client value. So sustainability can provide and will provide, maybe not immediately, like switching, oh, I did this, I'll get results immediately. But the ROI of sustainability, it comes, especially when we're talking about renewals of reviewing networks and about resilience as well. These global supply chains that rely on crazy modes or in remote locations, more and more they're proving to be more fragile when we talk about resilience and shortages. So there's also this trend of making shorter supply chains so they can be more robust, and shorter supply chains are more sustainable because of the distance of flows of everything. So this is a trend that people will start to see, that being sustainable also pays back. Not just about show off, and it's not about someone is telling me that we need to do it because of legislation, which doesn't exist, by the way, but this is something that is coming. And also the UN, the Sustainable Development Goals, they remain still as an unbiased framework to report and to guide our initiatives on. Unfortunately, only 17%, it's crazy and sad, only 17% of the goals are on track to be met by 2030. So we all gave a deadline back in 2015 that by 2030 we would reach those goals, but we only have reached 17 goals. Will be reached by 2030? Probably not, but we need to keep rolling. There are talks that they're reviewing this for 2050, but we're still pushing. It is a simple to-do list for our planet if we want to thrive. And I think that all of us as supply chain professional can contribute a lot on our practices, the way we are doing business. So we are continuing, we are leaving no one behind. So I think this is my last slide. I wanted to thank Shireen. This is us a couple of years ago advocating for the SDGs. I was wearing my climate action shirt back then. You had your SDG 5 back then, and I think it's good to have a partnership with companies like Symbios that continue to move the needle and push for not only super practice in the supply chain, because you talk about everything from digital transformation to sustainability, and we stay strong as a team to continue the journey towards making the world better through supply chain. So thank you all, and I'll take questions now.
Thank you, Fernanda.
Thank you.
That's really great. So, okay. Someone is asking you, Fernanda, if you can go back to the slide of e-barcode.
Yes, of course. Which one of those?
It's a request. It's written here. And someone says you like the t-shirt combination.
Yes, we're a strong team. Remember, Shireen. So this is so let me go back. Maybe this is, so it's not this one. I'm thinking, is this the one for the assessment? Are you monitoring? Is anyone monitoring the chat, because I can't see it from here?
I am.
Okay.
Yes, he's saying you to this one. He's
Okay.
saying thank you.
Perfect.
Okay, I'm monitoring the chat. And people are sending to you, thank you. Okay.
My pleasure.
This has been very informative session.
Yeah, this is good. Sometimes it's a step back for us to really think what we do in our daily jobs, right? In our practices, in our decision making. This is all about decision making. Someone decided on where we are right now. So it's time maybe to decide differently if you want to be in a different state.
Someone is asking about the presentation. We will share it. We usually send it, Ahmed. So don't worry about the presentation. You share it, and we will have on our YouTube channel the recorded video. Okay. So we'll have it on YouTube channel, and we have already our WhatsApp group. And Iman will put the channel for YouTube now. So you'll access it, and we will send the presentation. Okay. Any other questions? So I think people are impressed by the content you have shared, Fernanda.
It's a lot, right? Yeah.
It's a lot. It's a lot. And I
Yeah.
always say it's not supply chain, it's value chain.
Exactly. It's a value chain. We need to correct. It's not a chain anymore. It's not supply, it's value. You're totally right. Maybe we need to recraft the wording, Shireen.
Okay. So any advice to people at the end, to executives, top management from you, Fernanda?
Yeah. So try to think about, how your company stand in terms of sustainability. This is something you are passionate about. You think you can have an impact in your jobs, in your career. Study more. There are resources out there. Go back to your company, see where you can see the opportunities. It's all about action at the end of the day. So if you feel that calling that say, yeah, these things, this probably could be done best within my company, this could be decided differently, don't hesitate to look for advice, to see where the opportunities are. We can't shy away from this. We know some people are skeptical, and some people just operate under just 100% on profit, on value, but it can't be just this, right? This is what the world is proving to us. We need to attain that balance, that equilibrium. It's not just one thing. It's the three things at the same time. So if you go back to your daily jobs, if you see opportunities, don't shy away from it. Try to investigate. I left my email. I'm an advocate. I'm passionate about this subject. Shireen as well. We'll be happy to have a conversation and see how we can help your company move forward or help you, move the needle on certain practices that you're seeing are not well done or could be improved. So don't shy away. I think we're all taking care of our home, which is the planet, which is, the society that we live in and the world that we want to leave for future generations. So you're not alone. This is what I would say. Don't shy away from the opportunities that you see. Go for it.
So last question before we close. Someone is asking you, what is a methodology to measure sustainability? It's a very tough question.
Yeah. There's not a framework like a thorough methodology that someone from the UN. We have the assessment. The assessment is ASCM's methodology to measure sustainability. So you get a grading from 1 to 5, and it is the scores from all of the three pillars. How well you perform in your supply chain in terms of excellence, how well you perform environmentally, and how well you perform socially. Then you get a score. It's an ASCM methodology of saying how mature, how sustainable you are. But I wouldn't say, oh, the UN has a methodology framework for it to say if I am sustainable, if I'm not sustainable, or CDP. No, that does not exist. We try to combine it to give you a sense on where you are in terms of maturity for your company. And this is why these assessments, they're also facilitated. When we do these together with you to make sure that you understand what it means, to see what it's not just checking the box. and see what it is, to play with the result. We take it seriously because at the end of the day, we want to have those results, even for advocacy, to say, yes, most supply chains are on this level of maturity. We need to do this, and that to help them thrive and to help them be more sustainable or more mature in those aspects. So it is also a way for us to give back to the community. How can we help the community moving forward in terms of sustainability? So taking the assessment is also a good way to start if you think this is something that your company would benefit from.
Thank you, Fernanda.
Sure.
Thank you for the.
Oh, I think someone else raised.
Yeah. Thank you. And here is a sample certificate of appreciation for
Oh,
you.
thank
Soon
you.
we will write Dr. Fernanda soon. Okay. Thank you for helping us.
Thank you so much.
Taking the time and effort and helping everyone to learn from you. Thank you. Thank you to everyone who joined us today. Okay.
Thank you all. It's been a
so
pleasure.
Many hearts coming. Okay. Okay.
That's great.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you so
everyone.
much. Bye bye. Have a good day.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.